all. But this person works with them, is a trusted person in their circle. And they've actually managed to get them around their table. And I'm really, really interested in hearing the report back. So it takes something like that, a connection, you know. So he's also doing his conservative relatives. So there's a connection. He's related, and he's being brave, and he's trying to tailor the conversation, and he's reaching out and saying, please come listen to me. So it's you know, it is tricky. But if you also start with the people you know, you're reaching out to more and more people that can reach out to more and more people that will have a connection with a group that hasn't heard about it before. So yeah. Anyway, I am going to screen share just a few more slides because I think they might help answer some of the things that came up. Unless Alan would like to say something. You've unmuted. Would you like to say something, Alan?
Yeah, I just had another question for Guy. That he mentioned that these were all his friends, but what views did they have about the climate issue? What did you find the easiest to get across, and what did you find the most challenging?
Great question.
Everybody expressed their need for hope. Nobody wanted to be frightened. People wanted to hear, what can I do? They wanted to hear about other people that they could get together with and do it. That was what happened in the conversation that happened for the last 40 minutes. People wanted hope, and honestly, my presentation was half about hope and hardly anything about fear. That was what people wanted.
And how did you offer hope?
I mentioned what's going on in the world, and honestly, it is much better in the world than it was 10 years ago. You know, like you couldn't find anything in the newspaper about climate change 10 years ago. Now it's there all the time. I put up a list of the 25 different organizations in our little town of Peterborough that are working on this issue. I had a lot of things like that.
That's great. And that is actually that's the last section of the well, last half of it, I think, should pretty much be about that. Like, what can people do now? And so thank you for that. I am going to screen share just the next few slides. Okay, so when you're planning your conversation, what Guy mentioned, it is very easy to go way over time. So there's a few suggestions, and one of them is to know your group before you have the conversation, and maybe target, like tailor it, pull some things out of the resources, decide what they would most respond to and what they'd be most interested focusing on. You can send resources in advance. You can also say you can follow up. Like if there's a real keen interest that comes up in the group and you don't have time to cover it all, you could also suggest a second conversation. You know, it could be a series if you're lucky enough to have a group that will be that engaged. But I'd also practice in advance to make sure that you know how long what you're doing takes and leave enough space for a discussion. I don't know how much you are used to using online services, but of course we've had to take this online, which is a bit different than being around a real table with people. But adapting to that, we did decide, you know, a smaller group is usually easier, unless you have like tech help, which would be an option. I would also suggest, I will share these slides after, so don't worry if you can't read it all, but I want to also say, if you're going to screen share or run a video, I would definitely practice or ask for the help you need beforehand. As you saw tonight, even experienced tech people have some trouble with the technology. So practice if you get the chance. And your conversation, you'll have to decide how people will talk. If you want it really informal, popcorn style, just jumping in, that's fine. A little more formal, you can have S's in the chat box. But if you come to our third webcast in the series, we're going to focus completely on the tech. So if you have any nervousness around running it, we will have more about that and more resources for you. So I want to show you a couple examples from the toolkit so you can see what you can access if you want. We have presenter slides and facilitator resources. So I'm going to show you, this is from the presenter slides. When you're talking to your group, you are welcome to show visuals if you want and to use them from the website. And this one shows the option of playing a video. So if you want to use some of the short videos from the toolkit, it's a very good way to get people engaged in talking, and then just sort of break and talk about what they saw and how they feel. So that's an option. But I want to show you that we have in the Facilitator toolkit, we also have a lot of talking points. So sometimes when people have come to the facilitation trainings, they've said to me they're nervous because they don't know enough. I just want to say that you don't have to know everything. We do have this kit so that you can pull out some facts and talking points and feel more confident, but you will never know everything. I get questions that floor me all of the time. And what I usually say is I will follow up with an answer. That is a great question. If no one here in this group has any insight to offer, you know, so you don't have to feel like you have to know everything, but our kit does have some things to help. And just an example of a few other slides. There's this one, and it really just shows how bad things will get if we don't take action. But it also makes a link between anti-racism and environmental work, and racism and the climate crisis. So there are some resources in there to help you make links and help you show why we really, really do need to take action. And there are some resources that show hope. He mentioned hope. We have this whole section about how when we work together, things do change. And this is about the 3.5% rule. If 3.5% of us engage in collective action together, it is very likely that we'll see the change that we want. So there's some slides in there about that, and they're really useful as well. I just want to touch on how you tailor the conversation. And I pulled out 3 spots here, and I'm going to stop screen sharing and just talk about this with you, because how to make it interactive and how to tailor the conversation, I think, is kind of important. So let me just stop. I'd like to see you better. And so tailoring the conversation, there are 3 spots that you could maybe focus on. And one of them is, what are the local impacts? What is the group actually seeing happen? So I could, and I'm going to do this right now and ask you, are you seeing impacts to your life now from the climate crisis? And I would love it if 1 or 2 of you would put your hand up and just share. Anybody here want to share a personal story about something that's impacted them? Well, I will. Both my mother and my nephew have had to be treated for Lyme disease because we come from Southern Ontario. And in Southern Ontario, the Lyme disease is rampant and it's come inland. It wasn't inland before, it was near the water. So we cannot walk in our forest anymore and feel safe. So a story like that could be enough for the science and impact section, right? Like you could make it personal to the group by inviting discussion like that. The second place is what's happening in the community where everybody needs to be taking action. You know, is there something in the very community of most of the people around in your group that is happening? For example, maybe one of the towns, they don't have a climate plan at all. So you could encourage your group to work together to ask for a climate plan. Or there could be something happening, a social justice issue that there's a rally that they could join in solidarity. So your job as a facilitator would be to find out what's happening and sort of give them something to hold on to in action when they leave. And that's the what's next section. Find out if there are local groups. I think it sounds like you did that already in your conversation last night, which is great. Find local groups, find out what's happening immediately that they can join into, or find out what the group wants to know more about and see if there's something they're keen on. So these are ways to make it more personal to your group. And I want to try, if you don't mind, I want to try an exercise with you on the next slide. And this is a brainstorm. So how do you make it interactive on Zoom? Let's just try and see if we can do that right now. So we have what we call the quadrant exercise in the toolkit. And as you see, there are 4 different levels here. And we ask questions like, what actions on all levels do we need to adequately address the climate emergency and ensure a livable future for all? And then we have people give answers, whether it's in chat or whether it's out loud. And I just discovered that there is actually a way to annotate in some chat groups. So you can actually annotate this document in real time. I'm not going to do that right now. What I'm going to do is ask you to write in chat. So I'm going to ask the question again. And it is, what action do we need to adequately address the climate emergency and ensure a livable future for all? And if someone would throw out an answer in chat, we could start discussing and then we could build on it. So be a flexitarian. Yes. So that is a personal, individual action. So what I would do is ask my group, what actions do we need on all of the levels to help us be a flexitarian, to make that action widespread, to make it an equitable thing that everyone can do, you know? So considering, so on a community level, what would you need to be a flexitarian? What do you need at a community level? Perhaps local food production.
Access to food.
Yeah. Access to food. Yes. Thank you, Brianna.
No food deserts.
No food deserts. Yes. So maybe even a community garden. And what would you need from industry to help you with that? I think you need small organic farms, or you need a way to make small farmers and farming that right now is too expensive, regenerative farming, to make it more easily done. And on a government level, what could you have there? You could have, I suppose, subsidies to help the small farms. So this is the kind of thing you want to get in your brainstorm. And if I had set this up properly, which I would advise you to do, I would have created a document where I'd be writing this in real time and people could see me and we could make the connections on the quadrant. But mass public transit's a good one. And what level is that one on? I'd say it's who? What would you say? I see a smile from, yeah. I would say
get the government to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
The city government has to do that.
Yeah, city government, municipal government.
Provincial.
Yeah. And provincial, we have to work together. So we also have to
You're right.
together.
You're right. Provincial government probably needs to provide subsidies so that they buy electric buses instead of diesel buses.
So that is one way to engage your group. Another way would be polls. Polls can be really engaging. And another way would be a breakout within your group if you've got enough people to do a breakout. That is, and you're able to, most people with a Zoom account can do breakouts, and you could even break out in 3 or 4, like 3 or 4 people, so that people had more of a chance to interact. It's just one of the difficulties when you're doing these conversations on Zoom is how do you make it feel like you're connecting? So those are some of the ways to do that. So I think I have 2 more slides to show, and I think we're having good times. We'll have a chance for more discussion afterwards. So this slide, when you're having your conversation, you can encourage people to keep talking, the people in your group. Like I said, you may have a group that you feel you haven't reached too many people with, but they know people, and the people they know people. So talking is very important. And you might want to end your conversation by suggesting people keep talking, suggesting they hold their own conversation with people, or suggesting that you hold a second, you will hold a second conversation with them if you want. Now, I put Catherine Hayhoe here. If you haven't heard of her, her Global Weirding YouTube series is wonderful. And it's all about talking about the climate. So you could check it out, Global Weirding on YouTube. So one last slide. We have resources, a lot of them up at climateconversations.ca. We have a new Facebook group. We're just trying this out, Kitchen Table Climate Conversations at climatefast.ca. And we have a YouTube channel called Climate Fast Action. And these are ways you can stay informed, and we can keep asking questions as they come up and sharing our experiences as they come up. And it would be great because, I mean, even tonight, the experiences you've shared have been very valuable. So that's, so, okay, with just a regular Zoom account, that's a very good question, Peggy. And we actually will help you with that. If you want to reach out to us, we have several Zoom accounts with Climate Fast, and we will send you a Zoom link. You can also use Google Hangouts for free, Brianna's pointing out, and that gives you more, you don't have a time limit on the Google Hangouts, I don't believe.
No, I guess the only thing is breakout rooms are harder, but you could create multiple Google Hangouts and then send a link.
Oh, oh wow. Yeah.
That's a cheating the system solution.
It sounds wonderful. A wonderful cheat. So yeah, I think somehow we managed to have some extra time here. So if anybody wants to contribute anything else or ask anything else, how do you learn how to host with Zoom? Yes. Well, Betty, we do have the third session in our series of all about that. But also, you can reach out to us, and we're perfectly willing to sort of. Our tech team has actually said to me many times, we should help anyone who wants to set these up not feel like they can't do it. So I have a handful of tech people that would be happy to help you as well, even for your conversation, if they're able to make it work. There will be other training sessions. We're hoping to repeat the training sessions. Yes, and Peggy, the groups do often meet just once, but I really think it doesn't have to be that way. I just had a session, heard about a session where they've had 2 now, and the second session moved them into action. So here's an interesting thing. In the second session, they decided on 2 or 3 actions to take together. So it is a good idea to leave it open to having more than one, I think. And at the end of your first one, just say who would like to stay connected, and who would like to, who would like to come together again. And whether it's the whole group or, just some of them. I think the one today had half of the first group, but that's fine. Yeah. And Brianna's totally recommending multiple sessions. In fact, you do multiple sections, Brianna does, on her conversation series. So you really probably have a bond with the people by the end. So that's very helpful.
People feel way less lonely. And they start opening up a little bit more throughout the sessions, and they already start acting on changes because they're together.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
In the session that I did last night, that was effectively that's people asked for that at the end. They said, "Can we do this again?" And I had not planned for that, but that's what's going to happen. We'll do it again. They had said we should have had a series. Yeah, we'll have a series now.
That's great. That's a great idea. Yeah, and I wanted to say also, you can have bigger conversations. Like I had one with 40 a couple weeks ago, and it was really, really interesting because they want another session as well, and there was 40. So I mean, you can connect with more people than the 10 if you're able to. Just thought I'd bring that up. Yes, and Peggy, we do have some local resources in our resources. So because it's very Toronto focused, for better or for worse, because I am in Toronto and our group is mostly in Toronto. But yeah. So what was I going to say about that? I mean, that is a key at the end of the conversation to see whether they do need to be, like, some people need a support group. And if you don't, you can always refer them also to the Facebook group. We're trying to build a sense of community into the Facebook group for people who don't have somewhere to return after they do a conversation. So yes, I think an action for people to take, Virginia, is also key and very good to have. Like, even if it's something small, even if it's something they can do themselves immediately, that really helps. I mean, it's good if they can make the connection to collective action, and work together, but anything is good to leave them with to feel empowered. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Betty's sharing about a rural focus discussion and using a film. Do you want to say anything about that, Betty? I think we have 49 seconds, but I would love to hear about it. Oops, I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, it's a great film if anyone's in a more rural location. To get the conversation going, we had an excellent discussion. It was like a film night for climate change, and people watched the film, and then we had a Zoom meeting to discuss it, and it worked really well. So,
wow.
We have really different concerns than people in Toronto. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of the same, but a lot of really different concerns.
That's wonderful. I grew up on a farm, and I did a conversation in my country locale, and it is very different. It was great, though. It was so good. Yeah. Thank you for that.
The film?
Resilience.
Resilience, Transforming Our Community. It was we saw it online. It was hosted by Climate Action Collingwood, and someone's just written what great work they're doing there, and I agree. Brianna.
Yeah. So that's great, because that is it's really different. I remember talking about transportation in an entirely different way, you know, and actually their vision of a better future was slightly different too. So it's really good to learn from all the different places that we do these in. And it'd be lovely if you could share with us when you do, so that we can all learn from each other. So I see that this breakout room is supposed to be closing in a number of seconds, but I'm hoping that actually works right. Because I see 0 on the top of my screen there, and we're still here. So if it doesn't, I'll have to end it probably and send us all back.
It says 55 seconds for me.
Okay, great. Yes, yay. Yeah, I'm seeing 0, so I'm glad you're. Thank you, everyone. That was wonderful. And we'll have one more set of breakouts, and Brianna is leading one of them. So
really quickly.
Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
If
Yes?
you can hear me, I just had a really quick question. You mentioned the Facebook page.
Yes.
What's it called?
Kitchen Table Climate Conversations at climatefast.ca.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's very brand new, but I'm excited about it.
Good luck to everyone.
Yes, good luck, everyone. 10 seconds. I see it.
Thank you,
now.
Colleen.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all.